Welcome to the Private Practice Pro Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping therapists cultivate success. Here's your host, Kelley Stevens.
Welcome, everybody, to the Private Practice Pro Podcast. I am so excited to have our guest, JuliAnn Crommelin, here. One of my... We're already laughing.
My full name is just weird. I don't know. Okay.
That's your name. What's your middle name?
No, it is Kimberly. JuliAnn Kimberly Crommelin.
I knew that, but I'm also just laughing because one of our other dearest friends is named Kimberly. We're going to have her on the podcast.
Oh, yes.
But this is kind of a different episode. So I asked JuliAnn to come on because typically this podcast is about interviewing other therapists about the ups and downs of their private practice journeys. But I realized that throughout the process of interviewing people for this season, I never recorded an episode where I kind of talked about myself building my own private practice and the ups and downs along the way. And so I asked one of my dearest friends who was here with me throughout that process and who essentially held my hand throughout that process to come on so we could kind of talk about the beginnings of my private practice and how that went and even our friendship during that time and the ups and downs along my journey. So when I was thinking about doing that, Joel, the person I immediately thought of was you, because I think about all the coffees and phone calls and everything that we had during those years, which is so weird. So wait, before you go, because we're going to go, I have a feeling we're going to just go, I think you have to tell people who you are. I didn't really give you a proper introduction. Tell us what's your name, first of all, so we know, and where do you practice, where are you living, that kind of thing.
JuliAnn Kimberly Crommelin is my name. I am an ADHD and executive functioning coach, and I have an office in Westlake, but I am doing all my services virtually because I realize it's so much easier for people with ADHD to walk out of my office and forget everything we worked on rather than if they're in their home implementing their changes as we talk.
Totally.
And also they can't claim, I forgot my planner, I forgot my textbook, whatever. If they're at their house, I can say, okay, go get it. So yeah, doing that all virtually. But I do have, I have 2 horses and I'm starting equine experiences, which will be in person because I don't think I could get the horse to pay attention on Zoom.
That's a good joke.
Yeah.
You should tell that more. I feel like whenever, we grew up kind of marketing together, I'm going to go into that, but like when you get used to saying kind of your marketing spiel in private practice, it's funny how like we come up with these little jokes and we say them every time. That
over
equine
and
one
over
was
and over.
One.
and like you're taking the temperature of like how many people have heard this before that I'm standing in front of right now.
Yeah, you're like, have I had this meeting before? Okay, so before we go further, I want to give people who are listening to this a little more background into you. Because I think a lot of times when people hear the word coach, they're going to assume not as much therapy background, which is actually like couldn't be further from the case from you.
Thank you.
Number one, you are almost done with your MFT, right?
I'm working on my second master's. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe explain that a little bit. Where are you at in your academic journey?
Well, let me back up and I'll go through the whole thing real quick. So I started working in treatment in 2006 and as a program aide at a treatment center, residential. And then within a year, I was asked to go back to school to become a chemical dependency counselor. And I did that and got back then it was like an AOD certification, alcohol and other drug specialist, which no one's even heard of that anymore, but that's what it was. And I did drug and alcohol counseling for teens for 8 years. And then I started doing outreach and aftercare for the program. And then there was a bigger program with a bigger job opportunity available at an adult treatment center.
And
so
when we say bigger program,
yes,
I think we might be underselling the biggest. We're talking a multi-million-dollar program. Okay, we're talking a big program. Okay, so keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the very well-known programs. And so I did outreach and aftercare for them for about 3 years. And then I just really missed working directly with clients. And, you and I were friends at that time, and decided, all right, I'm going to transition into private practice. I was going to do some case management stuff. And I found that just the majority of my clients were struggling with ADHD, and I've always had a special place in my heart for that, with all of my family members being diagnosed.
And like half your friends, maybe.
More than half.
Like me.
We're just like magnets for each other.
Yeah.
And, I really saw it with addiction and mental health stuff. Like I really saw people that were struggling with ADHD that never got that treated, going into addiction to like treat the self-esteem stuff that was coming up, treat the focusing stuff that, makes us feel less adequate and whatnot. And so I decided to specialize with ADHD, and I went to a 2-year program to become a ADHD coach. So an accredited ADHD coach. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get my PsyD. So I was in a program that was Master PsyD, 3-year combined program. And I completed the master's program in 1 year, was about to start the PsyD track, and the program closed. And their master's program was not state accredited. So out of my 60 units, the program I found that would take the most was 15 units.
I remember this.
Redoing my master's. But I've taken my time with this one. I'm not, I did 5 classes at a time before with the last one. And now like I've built my business. I'm very successful, if I do say so myself.
You are.
And so I've just taken my time, and in the 3 years that I've been in this new master's program, like gotten married, bought a house, 2020 happened, got pregnant, had a baby, been a mom, bought 2 horses. So life is,
built
happening.
a business. Yeah.
Built a business. Yeah. All those things.
Yeah. And I think, so for anyone also who might not know, when you say you did aftercare and outreach for a program, a lot of what that is marketing, community building, helping to bring clients into a business. Now, in treatment industry, we don't always refer to it that way. That's not always like, we don't say, oh, I'm a marketing person. But a
dirty word.
We like want to couch it in a lot of other good things, and that's good marketing lingo. But maybe for the therapists who are listening to this podcast, a lot of what that is marketing. And that's where we met. So we met in, oh my God, when? What year?
It had to have been like 2016, 2017.
I think I met you when I was working in an adolescent treatment center in Westlake. So that would have been like 2014. JuliAnn, we're getting older. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
It's crazy. I still feel like a teenager just stuck in this body.
Yeah. I don't know, like, if I feel like a teenager, but I certainly look at my life and I'm like, oh my God, we knew each other. At the time that we met, we were both living in LA. We lived, I don't know, like 2 blocks from each other.
2 blocks away. Oh, so
and good. We both were going through all kinds of our own personal shit. And
so do you remember the first time that I like invited you out to lunch? So at that time you were working at a treatment center and you had a private practice where you were seeing clients.
Yeah.
And I remember inviting you out to lunch because that's what you do when you market is you cold call people and you get over your own fear, which is super challenging. And I was like, let's go to Champagne. And all you knew about me was that I was sober.
Yes! I forgot about this. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing.
And then she, Kelley was like, what do you mean? And then I sent her the address to Champagne, the bakery. She thought I was inviting her to go
get champagne. Yes, I didn't realize the restaurant was called Champagne. It was the first time we like were friend hanging out. Like we knew each other. But we were going to like friend. And like, I got to say, like you were like, in my mind, like you were like the cool girl. So like I got invited to lunch. Then I got invited to this. You were like, and you said, let's go get champagne, which is like, I think also such an LA way of saying something. Like
probably.
It's like if the restaurant's called like, let's go get Paul's. It's like, let's go get Paul's. You never say like, let's go to that restaurant. We like Paul's, we shorten everything. And so I was like, she's gonna relapse. And like, do I tell her? Do I not tell her? It was a whole freaking thing. And then also, like, I feel like very quickly we just like, I feel like we're at a phase of our life where we had a lot of the same business interest, a lot of the same personal interest. And so we would spend a shit ton of time just talking about work.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, like, but in how it affected our growth and development in our 20s. And like, I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but like, I think we liked talking shop about business.
We did. And, you know? I remember like pretty quickly after we became friends, you invited me to, you had a group of girls that got together from your grad school. And you invited me to come meet them, which was lovely. And, you know, I still get to talk with some of them today, which is great. And I remember you had your private practice and were working at this treatment center, and some of them were still in agency jobs.
Oh, yeah.
All of them were, I think. And I think that you and I were kind of like, oh my gosh, do private practice. Do private practice. What are you doing? Like, and, you know, with marketing, we're out there meeting all these therapists, all these psychiatrists, and like essentially like making friends like for a job.
Yeah.
And we were seeing what was out there, and we were talking to your, you know, the grad school friends who are phenomenal therapists, and people were like, no, you're going to be successful.
Yeah. Like you're going to be fine. Yeah. You're going to be totally fine. Yeah.
Stop doing your 60-hour a week, like, you know,
$20,000 a year
job.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were like driving all over God's green earth and whatnot.
Driving and like we had some friends at that time too, I think, that were in some loan reimbursement programs where like you got $20,000 a year for like as loan reimbursement for like 2 years, but you got paid like $25,000 a year. And so it was like, I had friends who were really shackled by the idea that they were going to get this loan reimbursement, but their pay was so low that it was like,
well, it doesn't really,
you know, what difference does it make, you know?
Yeah.
Which I just
that
think
made
about
me
now.
Think, like, when, you know, now you're the private practice pro. And I remember that day being like you and I, for some reason, I don't even think I was in private practice at that time. And you were halvesies, but not totally, but being like, do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. Absolutely. You can do it.
Well,
you were a big proponent of getting me, sorry to interrupt, to leave my
job,
you know, corporate treatment job,
right?
And taking the chance on myself and private practice.
Totally. I'm like, I feel like, you know how there's the friend that like you go shopping with and tells you to buy everything. Number one, I'm that friend for sure, but like, I feel like I'm also the friend that's like, why not just start your own business? And then I'll just hound you until you do it, you know?
Yes.
And that's not always good. Like not everybody always wants to start their own business. But 100%, like if you're friends with me, like I'm probably going to tell you, like, no matter what you do, I'm like, why are you working for this other person? What do you do?
You're very much an entrepreneur in everything. Like, I mean, just to give some background, I don't even know if this is important for anyone listening, but like in college, you just decided you're a wedding photographer and you just start a wedding photography business, you know? And like
in hindsight, that was such a bad idea, dude. It was like I think about that now, and I do sometimes talk about that on Instagram, and I'm like, I can't, like, that was a bad idea.
Well, but that's like, you have the chops for that and the guts for that. And you just do things, which I love, because I'm always like behind the scenes. Ooh, should I word it like this? Should I word it like that? And I mean, definitely wording emails to parents. You've had to be on the phone with me before.
We've spent a lot of time wording emails to parents. I mean, that's like one of the scariest parts about being a therapist that works with teenagers, you know?
And then you turn 35 and you're like, wait, I don't care.
Yeah, like, I don't give a fuck.
I'm just going to say it. Yeah, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those type of things. And I remember you started like an Instagram for your, an Instagram account for like the crafts that you were doing at one point too. And I was just like, God, what's this stuff? Like it was so motivating though, because it was like, oh, you don't have to second guess yourself 95 times. Like you can just do, and it actually isn't the end of the world. Like,
yeah, you could
even
mess
if
up.
it's not perfect.
I know. I feel like one day on like some podcast episode, I want to just go over all of like my random side hustles through the years. Because there were like, I think people look at Private Practice Pro, and even now I look at Private Practice Pro and I'm like, holy shit, like this has like been successful, right? But like there was like, you know, a wedding photography business, which actually served its purpose at the time. I started it really not knowing enough about photography in hindsight. But this was like pre-Instagram, pre-Pinterest. This wasn't like in the era of like, you know, whatever. Anyway, and I was very low cost. And so I shot weddings that were all over like, you know, I mean, we're not talking like just you name it, like weddings in restaurants, weddings in backyards, whatever, just tons of photos. And it was amazing. It was great. And I feel like I had a good experience. Had I done it for any longer than I did, it would have been a bad idea. Like I did it for like 2 years when I was in grad school for weddings where people needed somebody who was a lower budget photographer that could come and take tons of photos. But like I wasn't ever going to be Instagram worthy on the photos. Let's put it that way.
Well, Instagram wasn't around at the time, so it doesn't really.
I know, it was great. This was a long time ago.
It wasn't invented, you know, and Facebook wasn't really all about the fancy photos you took.
Yeah, it was like those like filters, you know. But I think it speaks to like at that point, and I'm a big believer in this in life, is like you just have to find what needs to work in the moment. And like what needed to work in that moment for me was one, like I needed a job that I could do on the weekend that paid me a significant amount of money to do on the weekend. That wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to get paid $15 an hour, or that time minimum wage would have been like $11.50 an hour or something. Like, you know, because I needed the money because I was going to school full time. And like, I needed something that was it was like the thing that worked in the moment. And then it stopped being the thing that worked because I didn't actually want to be a photographer. And I wanted to be a therapist. But I think, I don't know. I think you have to find those things that work for you, you know?
And like run with it. Like, who cares, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of the stuff that you've put out there, even pre-Private Practice Pro, it has been really important and influential. And a lot of it has just been documenting your life, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing I'm particularly thinking about is when you came over when we were both living in West LA, and you did like a Instagram live video with me asking about like body image stuff. And it was
my God, I forgot. That was a long time ago. That was before. What was that? Did I have that? Oh, that was my therapy page. I had a therapy page for a while. I forgot about that.
Okay. Yeah. And it was just like, you know, you were in the zone of working on body image stuff, and I
myself,
I'm always in that zone.
Me too.
And yes,
100%.
Yeah. And you were like, yeah, we're just going to put this out there, and
we're
like,
just going to film it.
We're just going to film it, and that's not something I ever would like think to do. Be like, oh yeah, people are going to listen to me talk about body image journey. Woof.
There's been like so many times, JuliAnn, when I feel like I've been like, JuliAnn, we're going to go to do this thing and you're going to like it. And, you know, hats off to you. You usually say yes. Every once in a while, you're like, that's like crazy, Kelley. Like, we're not going to go do that. But we've ended up, you know, in random thrift stores in the middle of nowhere, you know, like I feel it. Yeah, I want to be thrifting right now with you. That would be
That would be
I mean,
amazing.
This is really fun too. I'm happy to be doing this.
Yes.
Now I'm totally on the topic of like thinking about what I want to craft, and I'm not thinking about private practice. Okay, let's get organized. So what should we talk? Where are we going? What do we want to talk about?
Well, you know, in knowing you at that time, I'm wondering, because I can't really remember that far back.
Me either.
But like, I do remember you noticing what was going on in working with Treatment Center, noticing how much your private practice was growing, and, you know, and then there was, I mean, a lot of people were trying to recruit you for marketing jobs and whatnot. And you're like, yeah, I do not want to do that. Like, you couldn't name a price that would get me to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then that opportunity came up to have an office in LA. And that was kind of your first break with taking private practice clients like in a city that you hadn't already built.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny to hear it back.
Private Practice Pro, sorry to interrupt, but like for, the Private Practice Pro, like I wonder like, what was your process on the ground with that? Like,
yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so funny to hear it. Like, I feel like I'm so used to talking about my practice in some ways, but to hear it from your perspective, actually, I do see it in a different way. It's funny. So, you're right. So to give people some context around this, I worked for a large group practice that had, I don't know, at the time, maybe 14 or 15 therapists, and then 2 intensive outpatient programs and a partial hospitalization program. And I worked there for about 5 years. And during that time, I did my licensing hours there. So I worked in their programs as a pre-licensed therapist. Then I started working in their private practice when I got licensed. And the whole time I was there, pretty much, maybe except for the first year, I did their marketing and eventually became their marketing director and then helped them grow. And so partway through that marketing job, so essentially what my day would look like would be like from 9 until 2 or so, I would do marketing, and I specialized in working with teenagers. So then from 2 until like 8, I would see teens. And that sounds like a very long work day. And that's because it was. And I have some like workaholic tendencies, as I've talked about on this podcast before. And so, but I was also in my early 20s. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Like that was what was working for me. And I was learning so much. And I remember one of my dear friends, Kimberly, the same middle name as you. That's why Mela told me at the time, she was like, you got to take this marketing job for the treatment center because you're going to learn so much. And I really did. And that was how I met you, was you were doing a marketing job for a treatment center. I was. And like, if anyone knows anything about marketing for large treatment centers, is you go to lunch. Like your whole job is like taking therapists, doctors, psychiatrists out to meals, which if you're in your early 20s is a great way to go because you get a lot of great food.
A lot of great food. And it's like, the worst thing that can happen is someone's super boring, but like because you're a marketer, you're taught how to fill in like awkward silences and weird conversations.
Yeah.
And then you walk away from that and go, okay, I'll, not going to reach out to them again or whatever. But
100%.
then also sometimes you end up having a lovely time and making lifelong friends.
Yeah. And sometimes the people that we would meet with that were maybe a little more awkward or hard to meet with actually became good referral sources because they had a hard time marketing themselves. And I feel like a large part of both my job and your job was actually teaching therapists in our communities like how to build businesses, because like
and
so
to connect
much
them with each other.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you do this, but not for teens. This person does that with teens, but not for the adults. Why don't you guys hang out?
Exactly. I mean, I feel like, if you envision like a city like Los Angeles, right? And there are thousands, of therapists in their little offices, in their, going get their coffee for like whatever. And then there are these marketing people whose whole job is to like buzz around amongst them, essentially.
Ooh, it's like they're the bees and we're like the flowers. And the marketers need to like pollinate so that people can connect. They can make good honey. I don't know how I got to that analogy.
What is the honey? Is the honey
It's
the
relationships that they're like cultivating through saying like, okay, office 6A, you need to hang out with office 4Z.
Yes. That is one of your gifts. I've got to say, like so many of my good friends in life came from you. You being like, no, you got to hang out with this person. And they're, and a good marketing person, that's what your job is, right?
Yeah.
So Matchmaking. Exactly.
Yep.
And that was what you and I both did for a long time. And then I had a moment, and this gets back to your question, your original question, where I thought to myself, okay, I need to make a decision whether I'm going to do that full time because it becomes a whole lifestyle. Like becoming a marketing professional for bigger mental health companies is its own animal. Yeah. And you're right. Like I did have some job offers that basically said, name your price and, come and do our
you can't. No one can afford that.
I did name my price at one of them.
Yeah.
And this was actually the turning point.
Yeah.
And then they said yes.
They said yes.
And then I was like, shit.
Oh, wait, I don't want to do that.
I know. That was like, I still think about that today. I'm like, oh my God, how embarrassing. But you're right. I had a job interview with a company and they said, name your price. And I said, here's what it is. And I thought it was kind of a lot. And they were like, yeah, do it. And God, like that was so tempting, right? Because at the time it was a lot of money. And then I had this moment where I was like, wait, like I'm happiest when I'm running my own business. I know it. And this wasn't like a moment. I got to say, like, this was like, how many conversations have we had about
absolutely
values and purpose and career? And I felt like I was getting burnt out slowly but surely over each day without even realizing it. Like I was still going to a shit ton of yoga, you know, but like,
but it can't fill you up when you're like being depleted each day.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really, it's, you know, that saying of like, build your dreams, or otherwise people are going to hire you to build theirs. And, you know, it's like, okay, I figured out how to build theirs. And because you're not at the top, you can't say this aligns with my values. This doesn't align with my values.
Right.
Hey, can you add this clinical modality? Because that is something that I feel good about representing in the community. And they're like, yeah, check, that doesn't work with our overall, like our overhead costs, you know?
Right.
And so owning your own business, I mean, obviously there are just so many benefits and a lot of risk, you know, like Paul tells me all the time, like I could never do what you do starting it on your own. Like there's just,
same with my husband. He's a psychiatrist. Mine's a psychiatrist. I'm like, you fools, like you'd be way better. You're like, you have way higher earning potential than us. Okay.
I know, what the heck? And he's like, you know, has to go back into the office like 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah, like,
now.
that sucks.
Like, sucks for you because you have someone else dictating your life.
Right.
And for some people, they need that. I agree with you. I don't think that, you know, we clearly weren't working in that. Even though I had a lovely direct boss, like it was not.
She's the best. Can we give her a shout out? Can we give a shout out to Bree Rose?
Is the best.
We should have an episode with her and us. And just like ask her to give us some wisdom drops.
Yeah.
And she's fucking hilarious. She's so funny.
Is.
I feel like I want to wet my pants every time she tells a joke. I also haven't talked to her in like, I don't know, a long time. Embarrassing. Oh, I got to call her. Anyway, okay, back on topic. But here's what I want to say about what you just said. I think the entrepreneurship thing and what you're saying of like talking to other treatment centers or to who your boss is and saying, you need to add this modality or you need to do this thing is kind of the marker of a therapist entrepreneur in my mind. It's like, how am I trying to say what I'm trying to say? The best businesses, I find the businesses that are most successful have owners that fucking love what they do. Like love it, you know? Yeah. And have people who were saying like, we're so pumped about this. And unfortunately, we see so much jadedness in our industry. And especially when we're talking about treatment versus private practice, you know, like larger treatment, like a lot of
that
people
could be a whole separate episode. Right?
Oh my God. We could crap on treatment for an hour, but we probably shouldn't. But yeah, I think that's the beauty, or like, that's what I love the most about this job, which for me, private practice pro is really like a new job. You know, like I've been therapy, you know, even though it's been a year and a half or whatever, but is getting to see the lights come on for therapists where they're like, wait, I get to provide the care to my clients that I want. Yeah. And it like blows their mind, you know? Yeah. And you're like, no, yeah, you do. Like that's the job.
Yeah. Like you don't have to be depleted going into sessions all the time.
Yeah. Burnout. You don't have to be burnt out.
You don't have to be burnt out, you know? And I know that you talk about on your page, like what do you do in the breaks between clients, And I think, and I don't know if this is even relevant, but, you know, a lot of people like, I want to say like, you don't have to do back-to-back sessions all day long.
Yeah.
But here's for me, I do back-to-back sessions all day long.
Same.
2 days a week.
Same. We've talked about this. Same. What I have to put on my pants, I want to wear my pants all day. And then I want a few other days.
5 days of not wearing them.
100%. Yeah. I haven't worked a 5-day week, I figured out, since 2016.
Okay, so that's when we met.
Yeah. I think, around then. Because like, I think that I just was like 2 days of the weekend is not enough.
Yeah.
I would rather work an hour longer every day and work a day less,
100%.
and like the beauty of private practice is you get to decide that.
You get to decide that. And some people can, some people can't. You know, like in my office suite, they're like, you see how many clients on, I think last week I was like 8 to 8 on Monday and Tuesday or something. And they're like, that is nuts. I could never do that. I'm like, yeah, but I get 5 days off.
Yeah.
And then one of my office mates who's like, but I would rather see like 4 clients like 5 days a week and only work like 4 hours a day for that.
Right.
Like, cool. Awesome for you. That for me would not work.
Right.
But that's the beauty.
Yeah. Everybody's
being
different.
Your own boss. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And, I'm having some of your other office mates on this podcast, which
They're
is
phenomenal.
great. Sasha has already recorded an episode. And
okay, can we also talk about can I name drop Miss Lovely Jenny?
I gotta have Jenny Resnick on this podcast, but she is the busiest therapist I know.
I was gonna say, was terrified. Do you remember how many conversations with her? Terrified.
I forgot about. I'm gonna make her come on this. She's the busiest therapist I know.
She's the busiest. She probably sees like 50 clients a week,
easily,
at least.
Easily.
At least.
I mean, not easily, but easily. That's how many she sees.
Yeah. She
was like, I'm never going to be able to build I can't do it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you have more clients than anyone I know. And like, I'm not saying people should have 50, but like, we got to have her on the podcast. But
yes, but your fear is not fact, is all I'm saying.
Oh, 100%. I think like, I understand people's fear of like, they're working for an established job, right? They have health insurance. They get a steady paycheck every month. And then, I think there's this huge barrier of like, how do I pay myself? How do I do taxes? How do I like all these little details until we just start breaking it down?
Yeah.
And like we make it little chunks. And I even remember that when you left your job and started your business, I remember talking to you. I was driving on Pacific Coast Highway and I remember you calling me and being like, I got a bookkeeper. And she's amazing. And you had told me you had like stuffed all these receipts. Like, where did you put you stuffed them in something. And I was like, I think you should flatten them out. And like, or like take a picture or something other than just shoving them in. But those little things that now sitting back, you have your bookkeeper, you have all this stuff laid out. Those little things are the things that I think are the scariest. Or making a website.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like you guys, Kelley made my website for me for a birthday present because I was so terrified of doing it myself.
I forgot about that. Do you still use that website?
I do. I
just updated it. You need a new website. Okay, good.
Why? No, I've like updated
I was going to say, I made that like 5 years ago.
No, I updated it, but like I also realized, and this is one thing that you've helped me with is number one, I needed you to like put it together because just
I forgot about that.
And me is not good friends. You're way better. But then also like I needed to just be okay with playing around on the website builder. And like, if I click something wrong and it sounds super stupid, I can ask somebody to look it over and change it the next day. Or, at first when I added equine experiences, I tried to put a picture of my own horses up, but I am not a photographer and it was not a professional equine photo. And I was like, I'm going to need to use one of these stock images. Okay.
Oh my God. I forgot about that.
With it and you learn as you go.
I remember how scared. I remember you. God, that was a while ago, but I do remember this. I remember the website being a big barrier. And I remember having conversations being like, you just do this, this, and this. And you're like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Like A is not equaling B. I don't know how you got there.
Yeah, I forgot. And I forgot that was one of my side hustles for a little while. I did some therapist website.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta go look back. I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
That was like I did that. There was some reason I did that. I don't remember if I took a month off or something. Oh, you know why I did that? I remember because I was getting married.
Oh.
And I was commuting. So I would commute into the city 3 days a week. And it was like, my commute was horrible. It's like an hour and a half each way. So I would stay the night. And so I wanted to have a way to make money while I wasn't seeing clients. And I was getting married and I wanted some extra money for my wedding, I think. And so I was like, oh, I know a way I can make some extra money. I'll just design people's websites. Not you, obviously, I didn't charge you for yours, but like some other people. Yeah, I forgot about that. So random.
Yeah.
Really
You
so
also,
random.
didn't you help some of our therapist friends make like a course, like an e-course or something?
God, yes. I forgot about that. We still talk, those therapist friends that I still talk about this. I should have them on this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. So prior to actually starting Private Practice Pro, the Instagram, there was just Kelley, private practice person, helping my friends open their practices. And I would say, like, for me, it's like I'm obsessed. Like, I love it. That's the part I love. Like, I have always enjoyed seeing clients. I love seeing clients, but I absolutely love really empowering my therapist friends to open their own businesses, because I just think it's so much simpler and so much easier than people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Like it just is, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I'd have friends like tell me all these fears and all these reasons, which I just think of like as lies, like they're just lies we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
I loved being the person that was like, no, we can make you a website. Or like, no, like you want business cards? Let's make business cards. Okay, you want to go out. I feel like so many times go out and like, let's go meet with this doctor. Or let's go have that first marketing meeting, you know?
Totally. And there's the two parts, and you're really good, particularly with like, I mean, with both parts, but with, you know, I remember you making me a list of like, okay, you need to get your business registered with the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah,
you need to find an accountant. And those sort of things. And then there's, okay, how are you going to get your clients? Right.
Yeah.
So there's like the background, and then how do you get your clients? And I think marketing in particular, like anyone, you know, early in your therapist career, if you have an opportunity to do it part-time or whatever, like, even though I will stand from the mountains and say, like, don't give your life away to treatment centers.
Yeah.
I also will say marketing, the transition from marketing into a therapist is amazing. And it gives you so many skills that are so helpful in private practice. Like, just
so helpful.
Knowing,
like, would you take it back? Would you take back the years you gave to being a marketer? Me either.
No, not at all.
Were they fucking hard? Yes.
Yeah.
But I know that I wouldn't be where I am today had I not spent time marketing myself and really more like learning how to do it, you know?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Like knowing, there are just so many things, like even, you know, I remember when I would have a therapist come tour one of the facilities, and she said at one point, like, oh, well, I'm just starting to, I need more clients at my, you know, Ventura office or something like that. And I was like, okay, so we always want to be honest. And you say, I am building my Ventura practice, not I need more clients. Right. And just little differences like that you don't think about until you're marketing, you know?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it's hard to convey that. So like I posted a reel on Instagram recently about this where I said, I don't want you to say like, I really need referrals, send them to me. Yeah. I want you to say exactly like that. I'm building my practice. I'm looking to collaborate with other people. I would love to send you clients. I'd love to work together to help clients do X, Y, and Z. And I got so many negative comments on this Instagram post from people being like, what's wrong with being honest? What's wrong? And here's what's wrong with being honest. Like people, unfortunately, like we're human. Like we want to know that we're referring to someone, unfortunately, that could eventually refer back to us.
100%.
We just do. Like if you have two equally capable therapists who are amazing clinicians and you're thinking, okay, am I going to refer to the one that's full that could potentially refer clients back to me? Or am I going to refer to the one who just started out who has no clients? It's going to be the one who's full. But we all just started out at one point, right? Like we all. So when you're just starting out, you have to be clear and like intentional that you're building that you want to collaborate, and it's kind of sending, I think, that subconscious signal to the person that you're telling, being like, I know how this works in a way,
Right.
I'm going to also work as I grow to support your business as well.
Yes. And two pieces of what you're saying about that is, number one, as a consumer, as somebody who is reaching out to therapists that I want to see myself, when someone is like, oh, I only have a few time slots available, I go, because they're amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Now I need to see them.
100%.
That's the person I want to work with. If someone's like, oh, my schedule's completely open, when would you like to come in? I'm like, well, they don't have any clients for a reason. Okay. But also instead of talking about what you lack, aka like clients, talk about what you're excited about. Because that's really what fuels therapists and what I want to refer to, right? So if you're like, I'm trying to build my practice. And I actually just had lunch with a therapist friend of mine who historically had worked with eating disorders. And she's like, she just did EFT training. And she's like, I'm loving working with couples right now. So immediately my brain starts scrolling through its little baby Rolodex of what couples are needing some work. And
which of my friends can I send her? Because we're all struggling, right?
Yeah. That's, when someone's excited about it, we know that as therapists, we love helping people. So if you talk about all the different areas, yes.
No one, so many times through those years of learning how to market and you and I talking, that the conversations that would stand out to me would be the therapist that showed up to a meeting or showed up to a lunch, burnt out, complaining. A huge red flag when you're out marketing your practice is talking shit about another therapist.
Yes.
And it's something that therapists do. It really is or talking crap about another program or just clearly not taking care of your own mental health, all those things,
100%. Because people associate and this is true for life as well as, therapy and whatnot, but people associate the negativity with you, not with where you're aiming it.
Exactly. 100%.
And it's lack of trust, So what's your go-to line when somebody brings up a therapist, a treatment center or whatnot that you have had a negative experience with?
Ooh. That's a good question. And okay, so I think even in this conversation, anyone who's been listening into this long has heard both of us, we have been careful. We haven't named employers that we've worked for. We haven't, and JuliAnn and I both are longer than a decade into this field in a major city. There's plenty we could say about different things. I usually say to people, if someone says I had a really negative experience with so-and-so, I usually immediately say, I really can't speak to the work of that person. However, I only refer to people that I would send my own family to. And here's those people. I immediately pivot away from it. And they say, well, what have you heard of that? And I just say I don't think it helps me to say anything. You got to go with what your gut says and your negative experience. But here's a list of other fabulous gems. Because there are some amazing therapists out there, right? I try to pivot. I don't know. What's yours? What's your go-to?
Honestly, exactly the same. And
probably because I learned it from you.
Maybe. And I always go back to, this is who I would send my family to.
Me too. I say the same one. Yeah. And it's true.
It is true. It is true. And this actually just came up. A friend asked me about a treatment center that I'd never heard of, reached out to one of my friends who is more recently out of the marketing game and said, do you know anything about this facility? And she said, I had one case that didn't go so well with them, but every treatment center is hit or miss. And, I would call and see who the clinical director is right now or something like that. And I thought that was honest and diplomatic of, we can all have a treatment center that screws up a case or a therapist.
Oh, totally.
And also
that might not be a good fit.
Our clients,
everything with a grain of salt.
Grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
But I go to the same thing of okay, well, you know, who's running the program. I always look for the clinical directors, and that usually informs like the care. And then I say like, would I send my family here?
Yeah, that's always my criteria. And like, if I have major concerns about the safety of a program, I will say that, and especially if a client, if it's one thing if a therapist is just gossiping to me about something, but if a client comes to me and says, in fact, any of my clients that come to me and say, I'm thinking about going to this program, I will just be straight up. I'll just say, no, yes, maybe. Yeah. What maybe is like if they have to do whatever, But I think we're talking more about like if another therapist is talking shit on another therapist. But certainly when it comes to safety or clinical care, like I think you and I both would be very honest. And oftentimes I'll say to clients like, look, I'm going to shoot you straight on this. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of this program. And I would ask that you don't go back to this program and say, Kelley Stevens said X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just say, and you could just say like, oh, I think there are some better options. Yeah. I think there, and one that I'm realizing I just said recently with a friend that was asking me for referrals is, if this person wasn't my friend, I would be seeing them for therapy.
Oh, yes. There are some, okay, can we just talk about this for a minute? Because there are some therapist friends that I have that I'm like, damn it, why did we become friends?
Right?
Like you could have been my therapist.
So you can be my therapist, please, because you 100%. Kick my ass on a daily basis and I love
100%.
it. Yes.
Do you know who I'm thinking of?
Probably Kimberly.
Oh, she's one. She's definitely one. They're both ones. Jennifer Elder.
Yeah, that makes
She's
sense.
gonna come on the bitch. Like I'm just like why are we friends? Like could it? And that's like
stop being friends with me.
Literally, over the years of knowing her, I think I've sent like a lot of my friends. Like I'm like, she's like my go-to for my friends, where she's probably like seeing like overlapping people that I know. And I always think like when a therapist tells you like, this is the person that I would see if they weren't my friend, like that's a good referral.
Yeah.
You know, like that's who you want to see. And I'm like, could we be unbecome? You know how like you're not supposed to be friends with a client? Like, could we unbecome friends? And then like, this person becomes.
You can tell.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna have to tag all these people's websites in the bottom.
Though. I feel like we have such a lovely community. Like it's just some special souls.
But I want to give you credit and me credit to this. Like we work hard at that.
Yeah,
it takes time and relationship building, and really, I like to remind people like you have to invest in the other therapists around you if you want them to refer to you. Like I can't tell you how many, especially now, but even prior to Private Practice Pro, emails I would get from people that would be like, hi, my name is so-and-so. I specialize in this, this, and this. I'm looking for clients in this, and this area. And it's like, I don't know you. In what world do you think I'm going to send clients that I care about and friends that I care about to an email?
My name is on that referral. My name is on that referral.
So 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think and so when you build a community of other therapists, and this is why I say, I think most therapists, especially in non-insurance based practice, in cash pay practice, out of network practice, have a collection of like 10 or 12 people that they're referring to on a consistent basis for different things. And your job really when you're first starting out in private practice is to break into some of those circles. And that takes repeated care and relationship building to those people. Like you want to take them to lunch. You want to send them articles of things that you're interested in. And you are so fucking good at that. I think you did that to me. Like now that I'm thinking of it.
I literally, so one of our friends, another lovely therapist, Shannon, joked with me at one point. She's like, you have a formula, don't you?
Oh, 100% you do.
Like, I didn't realize I did, but I guess I do. And this is Shannon's words, not mine. Step 1 is inviting you to coffee. And step 2, taking some note from the conversation. Maybe you drop your dog's name or that you love reading books or something. And then about a week later, I find a meme that just so happens to fit exactly what we talked about.
Yes.
And I send it along. And then I say, really enjoyed seeing you last week.
Yes.
Would you like to get together to do some crafts?
Right.
Or maybe lunch and then some crafts.
You do rope them in with the crafts. I have noticed that.
Yeah.
You've done that to me too. Like we've made so much shit together, man.
Such good stuff. I mean, look at this macrame. What? Yeah.
Did you make that? Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not done, but yes.
Oh my God.
But I think it's also like when you are sitting with that person, when you do get one referral from that person, how do you treat your referrants?
Yeah.
How do you treat those people? And for me, that was one of the most pivotal things was like, if you have one referent, you can have 6 just from that one. But it's not about saying, hey, thanks for sending me a client. Do you have 6 more?
Right.
It's about saying, hey, I really appreciate you sending me this client. I'm wondering if there's a psychiatrist that you like that you think would also fit with this client. I'd like to collaborate.
Yeah.
And part of my business model, number one, because I miss people and being as social as I was, and because I know that I'm not always seeing things objectively, is that I don't work with clients that don't have a psychiatrist, have a therapist. Or if I'm working with a teenager, their parents need to have a therapist. You know, and you and I have talked about this because I know
it's a hard boundary to hold, and I do it. I don't see teenagers whose parents are not in therapy.
Yeah. But you know what? It makes our lives so much easier.
Yes. And our clients get better. And a lot of times people, especially once you're a more established therapist, and I have had parents that have said later on to me, I never would have gone to therapy, but I wanted my kid to go to therapy with you. So I did it. And we got, and it was, X, Y, or Z. Yeah. And they're your referrals to give out. Yeah. They're people to connect with. And, giving clients the best way to get clients. And I know for me, like I was really nervous at first when sharing cases with people. I mean, you and I have shared cases, and I was so many. We've shared a lot of cases. Yeah,
we did. And we had one client that I don't want to say she could have different opinions of what happened in the session that maybe
we had a tricky client.
We had a tricky client. And I think I was anxious because this was earlier on in our friendship. And it was like, what if she doesn't report this accurately? What if she paints me in a bad light? What if I did something wrong? What if I said something wrong?
You know what's so funny is there's actually like multiple people that I'm thinking of, but it's cool. We'll talk off camera who that was.
Yeah. But I think that sharing clients, even when I did say something that wasn't, 100% what my wisest, best self would have said had I taken a moment to think about it or whatever, like, you and I have talked about the client and worked through it and talked about the way that maybe they viewed something versus the way that I viewed something, things that, and I've brought up to you like, oh my gosh, I put my foot in my mouth. I did this. And sometimes you're like, yeah, you probably need to clean that up. And sometimes you're like, no, I think that actually really needed to be said. That's okay.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think so much of that speaks to when you work with people that you have a lot of trust with. And also like, the background on this too is like, we've been in 2 or 3 consultation groups together. We've done a lot of processing of our own shit together. We've talked a lot about countertransference. I mean, there's a lot of trust between us. And we've navigated our own conflict. We've navigated our own ups and downs. I mean, we've known each other for a fucking long time now. Yeah. And I think that when you're able to do that with other therapists, your clients get really good care. Because if you are on a case with somebody, let's say you're doing the coaching ADHD piece of it and the executive functioning piece, and I'm doing more of the trauma work with the therapist, and they have a family therapist working with them and their parents. Like if the therapists on that case have really strong relationships and good clinical relationships with each other, that client is getting a lot of that like reparenting, a lot of like really good stuff. Even if the therapists have conflict and say, you know what, we don't agree on this thing. And sometimes we don't, right? Sometimes I might not agree. I know like for this, like my husband's a psychiatrist. We've actually never worked on a case together, which is funny, but on purpose, because, we want to stay married. Yeah. And, but we talk about this, like we don't always see cases the same way, and that's not always a bad thing.
It's not.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's something you really taught me too, is like, you have to find the gems, like that's such a JuliAnn word, but it's like, it is like, you say that, you got to find the people to surround yourself by in private practice that are providing excellent clinical care and are good people. And I would say have a good business sense.
Work on themselves.
Oh, yeah. That's like a mandatory. Like, you need to be in therapy. If you're a therapist, I'm sorry, you need to be in therapy. Okay. At least a good chunk of the time. Maybe not every year or whatever, but like, you gotta be doing some updates.
Okay. For grad school, they're like, okay, yeah, before you graduate, you have to do hours of your own personal therapy. And I was like, okay, cool. How many? They're like 16. 16?
You're like, check.
I did that in my sleep last night. Okay. Like, that is nothing. I do not understand how people get licensed and go out into the world with 16 hours of therapy. Like, my husband jokes that therapy is my favorite hobby. And it's up there. It's up there. I do. I've also been very surprised, and you and I have talked about this, that the people that I have shared the ugliest, darkest pieces of myself with have referred clients to me.
Yeah.
Like, mind-blowing shit that I do not understand. Yeah. But like, I had an old psychiatrist that referred me clients. Yeah. I've had almost every therapist, 2 or 3 of the therapists I have had have referred clients to me. Like, what?
Yeah.
My dark, dark shit. Noelle, who has been a mentor and sponsor and everything for me over the years.
The guru. Yeah.
She has referred clients to me. And I'm like, but you know how cuckoo I is.
Okay, but let's give this a caveat. These are people that you have built a lot of trust with. You didn't just go into meetings and like day one, you met this person and are like, let me tell you my deepest, darkest secrets. Okay. These are people that like we are talking about this idea that like you build relationships in the long term, and granted, like maybe your own psychiatrist, like I would say the same thing for me. Like my own therapist has referred me clients and I'm like, am I supposed to take this call? Like, I don't know.
Right. Right. Whole other conversation. Yeah.
But I think you're speaking to that authenticity piece. You got to be bringing your own A game to your own personal health, your relationships with other people in the community, your own burnout status, your own, like I had this client once, actually we shared this case, and that I was really tired and my eye was twitching. You know how that happens? Like if you get really tired, your eye's twitching. And she said to me, your eye is twitching, and was concerned about whether that meant something about her, like whether that was like me being bored or me, whatever. And I had to really, but it was a good reminder in that moment. Like we always have to bring our A game to our clients. That's our job as therapists.
You have to work on your own shit and like own your own shit. And that also, like, some of the most powerful moments that I've had in session have been when I say, I realize I never covered this other thing with you.
Uh-huh.
I realize I messed up over here.
Yeah.
I realize da-da-da.
Yeah.
And, I've also, coaching is a little bit more measurable goals driven rather than like, therapy. The measure is challenging.
Right.
But I've also like, it's really scary the first few times I did this, but I started asking like, what has been helpful that we've been doing and what has not been helpful?
Mm-hmm.
And that was terrifying at first. Like I did not have the ego strength to handle it. And now like it's been one of the most helpful things for myself and my practice.
Yeah.
And really catering to each individual client and what they need, because some of the things that they're like, this was super unhelpful, my next client says was actually the best thing we did. So who knows, but really asking for that feedback. Anyhow, that's more about being in the session. But
We could go on for 3 hours. So, JuliAnn, here's what I want to know from you. I want to know, if you were starting over again in 2023 and you had to build a practice, what would you do now? What would be different? Or what wouldn't you do?
Am I coming into this with my marketing contacts or not?
You're coming in as you. Like, if you were starting today and you know everything you know about private practice, what would you tell somebody who's starting right now in 2023?
I would say make a list of the people that the therapists or psychiatrists, professionals that you know and like. Set up coffees and lunches with them. Ask them about themselves. Don't talk about yourself. Don't talk about your practice unless they ask. Think about how you can help them in their practice. And if you have a client that comes to mind, or if they're talking about a client that's challenging or whatever, asking, who would you suggest? If you're sitting with a therapist, you say, who are some of your favorite psychiatrists to use locally? Can you,
your favorites?
Just 2 people. If you're sitting with a psychiatrist, you say, who are some of the therapists that you really like? What do they specialize in? And then calling those people and saying, so-and-so spoke really highly of you. I just wanted to take you out for coffee, learn a little bit about your practice. I'm building my practice in the area, and I want to make sure that my clients have the best resources.
Yes.
And knowing that it's going to take a team. Like, I think one of the worst things that you can do is, if you have a client, not having them have another provider somewhere in the system. If they're married,
100%.
Maybe their significant other needs a therapist. Maybe they need a couples therapist. Maybe, who's their psychiatrist, and always asking for ROIs.
Yes.
Always
all the releases. All the releases. Yes.
And even if their therapist or psychiatrist didn't refer them to you,
call them. Call them. Right.
Calling them to get in touch.
I am shocked by how rarely people do this. I got to say, literally, I'll say to somebody, they'll come in and they'll be like, I want to build my private practice. I want to do this. And I'm saying, you already have some clients. Are you talking to their doctor? This only provides good care for the client. If you give their doctor a call and just say, I wanted to introduce myself. If you have any concerns, feel free to call me. Okay. Yeah. This is only good for the client, and it's only good for your practice. So why, and you could do the best part I love now. I don't know if you knew this. You can do this in simple practice where you just have the client sign. It used to be that you couldn't do it like this, but now you can send the releases back and forth on simple practice. Which makes it, I know.
If the other person has simple practice only,
you could just send it. So you have the client fill it out, and then you can send it on over to them, to the doctor.
I knew you could email it, but I didn't know you could send it through
the portal. You send it to the client through the portal, and then you could email it to the doctor. Basically, what I'm saying is, a long time ago you couldn't do this, but now you can do 90% of it in simple practice, and you can save it. It makes it so much easier.
So much easier. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, always. I always have them. Any practitioner they're working with, I want to talk with. Also, because I think it's just good quality of care. It's holistic. It's looking at the whole person.
It's good for 100%. I always forget to say that, and I think that's an amazing piece of advice, because I think that's so true. It's good for everyone.
Even if you have one client,
that's how it starts.
People. You have other people to talk to, and I can't even tell you the amount of people that have come through referral systems through just the fact that I reach out. And then I've also called so many therapists and told them about what I do. And also part of my caveat is I'm not a threat to you. Telling them about what I do for ADHD coaching. And so many therapists are I think I need to see you.
Same. You're one of those people where I'm if we weren't friends, can we friend break up? Because I for sure need some ADHD. There's been so many times in the years we're friends where you're Kelley, I think that's your ADHD. Or you're stressing me out. I'm I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, Jules. Well, that's what I call you, but everyone else calls you JuliAnn. So, all right, JuliAnn Crommelin. Yeah. Now that we're back to your full name. So we're going to put all your info in the notes below. So anyone who's, listening to this can look you up on the show notes. And I'm just thankful for you. I'm thankful for our friendship. I'm thankful that you did this today.
Oh, I'm so happy to do it. And like, I'm so grateful to be somebody that walked alongside you in that process of completely taking your foot off the shore and, and getting on that boat and not knowing where it's going. And watching you has given me more courage than I ever probably could have mustered on my own. And it's just like so amazing to see what you've built.
Thank you.
So amazing. And I know like this is not the like end all be all of what you built, because you are an entrepreneur through and through. And like you are going to continue creating because that is in your bones.
Yeah. Thank you. It makes me want to cry. There were, behind the scenes of this, there were so many conversations, JuliAnn, and there were so many through those years of building my private practice. I was also growing up. And I was doing my own therapy and my own inner work and my own having to figure my shit out. And you were there through all of that. So
ditto.
Oh, I don't know what I would have done, and I don't want to cry right now. So I don't know what I would have done without
this
you.
Podcast to like our younger selves, but I don't even think podcasts were a thing back then.
Talk about not wanting me to cry, like making me cry, like or fuck, dude. Like last tidbit of information, and then we're gonna sign this thing off. Is the day I rescued my dog. You were there.
Oh, Penny.
And that's like such a huge part of my own journey toward healing. And you were there that day. So you were there for the big business shit where we were wearing our nice business lady outfits and going to conferences, but you're also there for a lot of the personal shit too. So I'm so thankful for you.
Shit also.
Oh my God. I like now that I'm in private practice wear a lot of yoga brands all the time. But, a lot of the
I don't
yoga
even know what
shit.
I'm doing with like high heels in my closet. It's just stupid.
Oh my God. I finally, I jumped them. Okay, we got to sign off. Otherwise, we're never going to sign off. Okay. Goodbye, everyone. This podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. I've been using Simple Practice since 2016, which has helped me run a smooth and profitable private practice over the years. It has simplified everything from scheduling to billing, giving me a better balance between the work I'm so passionate about and the family time I'm not willing to miss out on. Check out the episode notes to get a free 2-month trial of Simple Practice, my preferred all-in-one HIPAA-compliant solution. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Ask Kelley Anything, where I answer all of your burning private practice questions. So without further ado, let's play today's question and get into the answer.
Yes, hello. So my name's Lorena, and I'm a new therapist working on my LPCC. And I have a question about a Zoom session that I had with a new client yesterday. So I was supposed to be doing the intake, and she requested that it be via Zoom. And the link that the front office had given me and had given her wasn't working. So we actually were not able to go into the session until 11 minutes into the session. And then I ended up just creating my own link and sent it to her just to try to reach her, since we weren't able to connect with the other link. And so she hopped on right away, and it only allowed me to talk to her for about half an hour. Then I had to ask her to, hop back on, that it was going to kick us out, and to hop back on. And of course, I was a little embarrassed because of all the technical difficulties that were out of my control. This was my first time doing that, and I thought that the link would work, and it didn't. So anyway, my question is, we missed some minutes in the beginning, and then I had to inconvenience her again and ask her to hop off and hop back on. And so I'm just wondering, on my side, I wasn't able to get a full intake the way I've been doing with other new clients. And I really don't think that she was able to really have that connection, have that first session with me the way it should have been. And so I just feel bad because it worked out that way. So my question is, should I approach her about that and ask her if she wants to do a redo, or what do I do? Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, so this is such kind of a classic modern question that we all have going on right now. Sorry, Jen, I have a cold. Okay, so this is such a classic kind of modern question that we all have going on right now. And I don't think there's one right way to address this question, but here's the first thing I would do. I would say if you're feeling kind of icky about it or you feel like the session was off, yes, in your next session, I would definitely address it with her. And I would say, during our first session, we started 11 minutes late because of the link. I had to ask you to jump off and jump on again. If it were in my private practice and I was trying to make sure that I retained that client and I felt like they were a good fit, I probably would waive the cost of that first session. Now, everybody is really different on this one. I definitely have colleagues who will say, if it was the client's fault that they couldn't get on the Zoom, then I'm not going to waive it. But for a first session with a good fit client, I would probably waive that fee, especially because you didn't have a backup option. So, the other thing I always like to tell people is with today's kind of modern technology, it's still good to have some sort of backup option. So let's say you're using Zoom and you're using a Zoom account for the group practice you're working for, or it's not necessarily your Zoom. And it sounds like what you did is you sent her a Zoom link from your private Zoom. But, usually those private Zooms, if you're not in the paid version, you don't have more than 40 minutes, I think, or 30 minutes. So what I would probably do is upgrade your personal Zoom. And, usually you have kind of a personal Zoom link or your own private room in Zoom. And I would make sure that that link was readily available, that if for some reason the link for the group practice you weren't working for, make sure you have it saved on your desktop, make sure that you have the upgraded version of Zoom so it lasts at least an hour, and so that you always have that backup option. So number one, this is just a good learning lesson. We always want to check the tech first. And sometimes what I tell people is for that very first session on Zoom, if you're somebody who's not really, really confident in the tech that you have, maybe book an hour and 15 minutes and tell people just for this first Zoom session, let's book 15 extra minutes so we make sure we both get on Zoom and that the technology is working. And that can be a really great way of doing it too. So I hope this helps. Don't be hard on yourself. This happens to all of us, but make sure you just check in with the client and make sure she's feeling good about moving forward. And I would imagine that she'll feel really good about that check-in too. So good luck. If you would like to be featured on Ask Kelley Anything, I love getting listener questions from you guys. Anything about private practice goes. And the best way to do that is actually just to give me a call and leave me a question on my voicemail. So I'm going to tell you the phone number right now and make sure to write it down. Here it is, 805-243-8241. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.